The employment rate for Singapore citizens has gone up over the past 10 years. It rose from 60% in June 2009 to 63.6% in the same month last year. Now, that's among a slew of data released by the Manpower Ministry.
So let's take a look at the latest numbers in detail now. The rising rate of citizen employment was led by workers aged 65 and above, reflecting efforts to improve the employability of older workers. The trend tracks very closely to resident employment, though the ministry believes it may diverge in time with a growing older population.
Well, the ministry stresses that citizens make up a majority of the resident labour force at about 85%, and the permanent resident population has remained stable at about 500,000. Now, this means that for the most part, the resident data has mirrored that of citizens.
And when we look at employment by occupation, the share of professionals, managers, executives and technicians, or PMETs, has also increased steadily. It rose from 47% in June 2009 to 56% in the same month last year.
Singapore citizens are also earning more. Real median income growth over the last 5 years was nearly 4% per annum. That's faster than the nearly 2% from the previous 5 years. Now, as for the citizen unemployment rate, it was 3.2% in June last year, and that is slightly higher than the 3.1% that we saw for all residents.
So the ministry says that this is typical, as PRs have to demonstrate a high degree of employability before they are granted residency. Fewer Singapore citizens also lost their jobs, as the number of those retrenched declined from about 8,300 to nearly 5,500 from the years 2016 to 2018. That was after 2 years of rising retrenchment.
Now, overall, the Manpower Ministry says that more Singaporeans were employed over the last decade. The last time that the ministry released all this data, that was in 2011. And the next release was scheduled for 2021, but it's been brought forward amid heightened public interest.
And in a Facebook post, Manpower Minister Josephine Teo says there is, well, quote, no sinister reason, end quote, as to why the data is not broken down between Singapore citizens and permanent residents. She says the PR population does not have a significant impact on trends. Mrs. Teo highlights the importance of looking at data over longer time periods.
And she says she's confident that Singaporeans will understand this approach to statistical reporting and not fall prey to attempts to sow distrust between the government and the people through suspicious lines of questioning to see shadows where there are none.
Experts say the strong employment data is a result of earlier education, manpower and restructuring initiatives that aim to give the economy and labour force a boost. But they also say that there are areas for improvement. Sherilyn reports.
Efforts by the government, unions and companies to make older workers more employable are paying off. Employment rates for workers aged 65 and above rose by 11% over a 10-year period, helping to drive growth in overall citizen employment. Experts expect this momentum to carry on in the years ahead, amid a continued policy push to make these workers more employable.
By 2020, we do see retirement age being raised to 65 and re-employment going to 70. We do expect more mature workforce to maintain, continue working longer, and as such impacting the numbers.
Adding another perspective, employment rates for citizens aged 25 to 64 have also tracked closely to that of residents.
But authorities warn that it won't be surprising to see a divergence in the years to come. Now, that's because with Singapore's aging population, the profile of citizens will likely shift towards the older ages, and it'll happen faster for citizens than for permanent residents. Now, on top of that, older cohorts also tend to have lower employment rates, which would weigh down overall figures.
The report also found that the number of professionals, managers, executives and technicians, or PMETs, among Singaporeans has grown.
In the last 10 years, a lot of decisions and investments have been made locally in Singapore to develop Singapore into a hub for innovation. And with such, we've seen a lot of activities flourishing, especially around the sectors such as technology, manufacturing, supply chain, life sciences and financial services. We also see a lot more graduates coming out with specialized skills.
However, one analyst points out that it's not all rosy, as PMETs also make up a large share of those who have been retrenched.
PMETs, they command higher salary, and typically in cost-cutting exercise, they tend to be relatively more susceptible to being retrenched. Also, many PMETs, they are employed in more externally oriented segments, industries. And these industries tend to have a more volatile and shorter business cycle. We can afford to provide more support to these retrenched PMETs. And I definitely look forward to some new policy measures in the upcoming budget in that regard.
Mr. Seah also noted that real median income growth for Singaporeans has averaged 3% per annum, hitting targets set out a decade ago. While productivity growth was a key focus of the targets, Mr. Seah added that a more important outcome was ensuring wage growth.